Before you pause this video and head to the comment section, let me preface this video with something that might sound contradictory to this review. I think Silksong is one of the greatest video games ever created, but I can't recommend it to you. I'm going to be brutally honest about a game that on the surface feels almost flawless. The combat is surgical, the platforming is tight enough to make your palms sweaty, and the story lingers but still makes itself known to keep you interested. Every action you take echoes with something larger, meaning you might not fully understand until much later. The developers created gauntlets instead of levels, challenges that demands not only just quick reflexes but also tough decisions. Do you bash your head against the same boss dozens of times, learning their every move until you beat them? Or do you leave to gather more tools, unlock new abilities, maybe even find an NPC who can help you in the fight? That's the strange brilliance of Silksong. It's a linear world that somehow manages to feel alive with choices. Every path feels like your own decision and your own responsibility. And yet, I don't think you'll like it. You see, the people who are destined to fall in love with Silksong, they're already playing it. They don't need convincing. They don't need a review telling them that this is their next obsession. If you're here watching this, odds are you're curious, but also hesitant. And my job isn't to convince you otherwise. My job is to show you exactly why Silksong will either become your next favorite game or the game that breaks your spirit. Let's talk about the narrative. In Silksong, you first step into the shoes of Hornet, a character you'll remember from the first Hollow Knight if you played it. Back then, she was an enigmatic NPC, equal parts ally and obstacle, and now she's the star of the show. Her journey begins kidnapped and brought to the mysterious kingdom of Farloom. But she isn't set up as a damsel in distress. Hornet is not the type to sit around waiting for rescue. The opening moments make it clear she's perfectly capable of freeing herself, though in classic Team Cherry fashion, her freedom comes with a price. After a fall that looks like it should have killed her, Hornet picks herself up, brushes off the dust, and begins her trek through the moss groves where our journey begins. Now before I go further, it's important to understand what Silksong is trying to do. This isn't a story-heavy, dialogue-driven epic in the style of Death Stranding or The Witcher 3. It's not going to sit you down for half an hour to explain the history of every blade of grass in Farloom. The narrative here is more like an atmosphere, a set of questions humming quietly in the background while you focus on surviving with each step. Why was Hornet brought here? Who orchestrated her kidnapping? What's hidden inside the strange crumbling kingdom? These mysteries give your journey a sense of purpose, even if the game never spoon-feeds you answers. And yet, while the main plot does take a backseat, Silksong doesn't feel hollow. The world is packed with bizarre, fascinating characters who make Farloom feel alive. You'll run into eerie, eccentric NPCs, some helpful, some hostile, and all dripping with personality. They don't just stand there waiting to sell you items or hand out fetch quests, they feel like they have their own agendas, their own little dramas playing out in the ruins. It's a design choice that makes exploration more rewarding. Every encounter feels like it matters. One thing I really love this time around is how much more interactive Hornet feels compared to the Knight in the first game. The Knight was essentially a silent wanderer, which worked for the mysterious tone, but Hornet brings a sharper edge, literally and figuratively. She actually speaks, and her interactions with NPCs add a spark of humor and humanity to the game. Sometimes it's witty banter, sometimes it's biting sarcasm, and occasionally it's just flat out funny. It's a small detail, but those little touches go a long way in making Hornet feel like a character you're embodying, not just a vessel you're controlling. It also helps that these moments break up the otherwise heavy tone of the world. Farloom is creepy, it's unsettling. The air feels thick with history and decay, and the NPCs are your way of peeking into the culture and tragedy of this fallen kingdom. Some of them might make you laugh, others might unsettle you, and a few might even tug at your heartstrings, but every one of them adds to the tapestry. Now let's temper expectations. Silksong isn't trying to deliver a sweeping cinematic narrative. If you're expecting something like Final Fantasy XIV or Red Dead Redemption 2, you'll be very disappointed. Instead, this is a storytelling through fragments, environmental clues, cryptic dialogue, and the choices you make. And speaking of choices, yes, there are multiple endings. Your decisions, your exploration, and your mastery of Hornet's tools all feed into which conclusion you'll ultimately see. So is the story revolutionary? Not really. But is it effective? Absolutely. Silksong doesn't need a sprawling narrative to keep you invested. Its mystery pulls you forward, its characters flesh out the world, and Hornet's newfound voice makes the journey more engaging than ever. Its narrative as a seasoning rather than the main course. It's subtle, but just enough to make everything taste better. Next, the gameplay. This is, without question, the beating heart of Silksong, and honestly, it might just be the single biggest reason this game has already carved out its place as a masterpiece, or a nightmare, depending on how much you enjoy being emotionally broken by little bug people. Hornet's playstyle is completely different from the knights in the first Hollow Knight, where the knight felt deliberate, almost methodical. Hornet is quick and agile. She darts across the screen, chaining movements together with a speed that makes combat feel more dynamic and also more punishing if you screw up. Now, agility is only the beginning. Silksong introduces crests, upgrades that don't just tweak stats, but fundamentally change how you play. Early on, we start with the Hunter's Crest, which comes with its awkward diagonal down attack. I hated it. Every time I used it, it felt like Hornet was just trying to stab the spike floors out of spite rather than hit the pogo balloon. So the second I unlocked the Reaper's Crest, I bench Hunters in a heartbeat. That one crest changed my entire playstyle, and I never looked back. That's the magic of Silksong's crest system. It offers not just simple upgrades, but also a different identity. Within crest, you also gain access to tools, divided into 3 groupings I'll call red, yellow, and blue. Each tool brings unique abilities to the table. Offensive traps, defensive lifelines, or utility powers that can completely change how you approach a challenge. Stuck on a boss? Maybe it's not you, maybe it's your build. Switch tools, rethink your approach, and suddenly what felt impossible starts to click. Combat though, this is where I need to be blunt. It's harder than the first Hollow Knight, considerably harder. And I'm confident in saying that because I started Silksong right after finishing Hollow Knight, and the difficulty spike smacked me in the face almost immediately. Bosses in this game chewed me up and spat me out. I clear one, breathe a sigh of relief, then walk straight into the next nightmare. And yet, that's what kept me hooked. Each boss felt like a puzzle of patterns waiting to be solved. My death wasn't unfair, they were me, my sloppy hands. My dumb decision to jump into an attack instead of away from it. Time and again, I was my own worst enemy. But let's talk about the real villain of Silksong, runbacks. If you ever played tough as nails games, you know the pain. Dying to a boss is one thing. Dying to a boss and then having to slog through 2 minutes of obstacles just to get back to that boss, that's when controller meets the wall. Act 1's Blasted Steps was a nightmare. Act 2's Biowater, that area combines everything evil about game design into one horrific gauntlet. A tight window to avoid rotworms, a punishing climb filled with enemies designed solely to wear you down, and then, because Team Cherry really wanted to test your sanity, 4 waves of ads before you even touched the boss. By the time I actually got to the fight, my hands were already sweaty and cramping. There were times I didn't know if I was excited about beating a boss or just relieved that I'd never have to do that cursed run back again. And if I'm being honest, half the time, it was the latter. Now, combat isn't the only thing trying to break you. Platforming in Silksong deserves its own horror story. I'll say this up front, I don't play a lot of 2D platformers, so maybe veterans of Celeste or Super Meat Boy will laugh at me, but some of these sequences are absolutely brutal. There's one section in particular, time limited, checkpoint to checkpoint, with failure meaning near instant death, that nearly drove me to uninstall the game. I could feel the jump button on my controller begging for mercy as I spammed it over and over, only to miss a ledge by half a pixel. And here's where I have to be brutally honest with you, most people are not going to enjoy this. Between the bosses, the runbacks, and the platforming puzzles, this game demands a level of patience and persistence that I don't think your average player will find rewarding. It's stress stacked on stress. The kind of stress that makes you laugh, cry, and scream at your screen at the same time. And yet, I loved it, which makes no sense. I'm not the type who strives on masochism. I've never finished a Dark Souls game. I dropped Black Myth Wukong halfway through because I hit a wall and I thought, nope, this isn't fun anymore. I don't usually like games that go out of their way to punish me, so why did Silksong grab me? I think it's because the difficulty, while frustrating, is never pointless. Every death feels like it's teaching you something. Every platforming failure sharpens your reflexes. And when you finally overcome the challenge that's been grinding you down for hours, the catharsis is unreal. That mix of exhaustion and triumph is something few games ever deliver. Did I lose my mind? Absolutely. Did I nearly snap my controller in half? More than once. Did I walk away from the game convinced I was done with it forever? At least 3 times. But every single time after a night of cooling off, I felt the itch to jump back in. So where does that leave Silksong? It's a game that's both beautiful and brutal. A work of art designed to push you to your limits, then quietly whisper in your ear, try again, you can do better. The combat is faster, sharper, and more demanding than the first Hollow Knight. The platforming will test your patience, the runbacks will test your sanity, and the bosses will test everything else. And yet, through all that frustration, something strange happens. You find yourself falling in love with the challenge. Every time you overcome a wall, no matter how many hours it takes, you feel that rush of accomplishment that only games like this can deliver. It's the kind of satisfaction that you can't fake. But let's be honest, Silksong is not for everyone. If you're the type of player who likes games to be a relaxing escape, this is not it. If you want a cinematic story-driven experience with endless cutscenes, this is not it. This is a game that demands you to show up, focus, and accept that you will fail a lot. And that's why I said at the start, I think Silksong is one of the greatest video games ever made, but I can't recommend it to you. Not unless you're ready for the pain that comes packaged with the beauty. For those willing to endure, Silksong is a gauntlet, a trial, and a reminder that sometimes the hardest journeys are the ones worth taking. And speaking of new journeys, Hideo Kojima just revealed a whole slate of upcoming projects. I break them all down in detail in my next video, so make sure to check that out. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. My name's been Suka. I'll see y'all in the next one. See ya.